ya? Aku cakap dengan kau tak ada satu.
Ibu!
Perpisahan yang menyakitkan.
Minta maaf sayang.
Ujian berat buat seorang ayah.
Duit! Banyak punya duit!
Dan seorang abang. Masihkah ada sinar buatnya?
Assalamualaikum dan salam sejahtera. Saya Najib, Aroff dan ini Niaga AWANI. Kita mulakan dengan perkembangan utama untuk jam ini. Presiden Amerika Syarikat Donald Trump umum asas tarif 10% terhadap semua import ke Amerika Syarikat. Malaysia antara negara yang disenaraikan dengan tarif timbal balik 24%. Tarif lebih tinggi turut dikenakan terhadap negara yang berdagang dengan volume besar seperti China. Antara tarif tertinggi adalah terhadap China dikenakan 34% untuk tarif timbal balik. Kesatuan Eropah 20%, Vietnam 46%, Sri Lanka 44%, Kemboja 49%, Laos 48%, Myanmar 44%. Langkah Trump itu dijangka akan mencetuskan serangan balas tarif sekaligus mewujudkan penghadang kepada perdagangan bebas global. Dan ia juga dijangka melonjakkan inflasi di negara Uncle Sam itu. Sebelum ini, Kanada dan Mexico dikenakan 25% tarif timbal balik.
From Congress. The tariffs will be not a full reciprocal. I could have done that, yes, but it would have been tough for a lot of countries who didn't want to do that. I'd like to see the chart if you have it. You bring it up, Howard. This is our great Secretary of Commerce. So if you look at that, China, first row, China, 67%. That's tariffs charged to the USA, including currency manipulation and trade barriers. So 67%, I think you can, for the most part, see it. Those with good eyes, with bad eyes. We didn't want to bring, it's very windy out here. We didn't want to bring out the big charts because it had no chance of standing. Fortunately, we came armed with a little smaller chart. So it's 67%, so we're going to be charging a discounted reciprocal tariff of 34%. I think, in other words, they charge us, we charge them less. So how can anybody be upset? They will be because we never charge anybody anything. But now we're going to charge. He understood.
Okey, daripada graf yang Donald Trump tunjukkan sebentar tadi, saya ingin membawa kepada anda. Ini antara senarai beberapa negara utama yang dikenakan tarif timbal balik. Kalau kita saksikan seperti yang Trump sebutkan tadi, China menduduki tangga pertama dengan tarif timbal balik sebanyak 34%. Yang anda lihat di sebelah kirinya, 67% itu adalah tarif yang US katakan dikenakan terhadap produk-produk keluaran Amerika Syarikat yang dibeli oleh China sendiri. Kalau anda lihat senarai ini sehinggalah ke bawah, China menduduki tangga pertama, diikuti oleh Kesatuan Eropah, diikuti oleh negara Asia kebanyakannya, Vietnam, Taiwan, Jepun, India, Korea Selatan, Thailand, Switzerland, negara Eropah, Indonesia dan juga Malaysia di bawah itu. Kedua terbawah kalau anda lihat, kedua terbawah Malaysia, di mana menurut Donald Trump tarif yang dikenakan termasuk juga halangan bukan tarif adalah bernilai 47% terhadap produk Amerika Syarikat. Dan tarif timbal balik yang diumumkan Amerika Syarikat terhadap Malaysia adalah bernilai 24%. Bagaimanakah kesannya kepada urusan dagangan Malaysia dan juga Amerika Syarikat? Ini kita belum ketahui kerana Amerika Syarikat merupakan rakan dagang ketiga terbesar Malaysia selepas China dan juga Singapura. Jadi ini sudah pasti memainkan peranan yang sangat besar. Okey, kalau anda lihat angka di kotak kuning dan juga kotak biru cair itu adalah berbeza. Ini apa yang Trump katakan tadi, walaupun ia adalah tarif timbal balik namun angkanya belum sepenuhnya dikenakan oleh Amerika Syarikat. Sebab itu anda lihat angkanya berbeza. Kalau angkanya sama, 67% oleh China, 67% juga harus dikenakan dalam timbal balik. Tapi Trump mengatakan bahawa mereka tidak melaksanakan perkara itu kerana akan menjejaskan banyak negara dan mereka tidak mahu itu berlaku. Itu menurut Donald Trump. Kalau kita melihat kepada Malaysia, dua terbawah itu 47% jumlah keseluruhan tarif yang kita kenakan terhadap produk Amerika Syarikat, tetapi timbal balik yang dikenakan diumumkan adalah 24% terhadap produk-produk tersebut. Bagaimana kita memahami timbal balik ini? Timbal balik ini adalah bagaimana kita melihat suatu produk itu yang dikenakan levy oleh sebuah negara. Sebagai contoh, apabila Malaysia membeli produk Amerika Syarikat, kereta sebagai contoh, kita kenakan levy pada sekian number, dan juga Amerika Syarikat juga membeli kereta dari Malaysia sebagai contoh. Amerika Syarikat juga akan mengenakan levy yang hampir sama nilainya. Inilah timbal balik yang dimaksudkan. Namun sudah pasti adat perdagangan di peringkat global, ada sikap pelindungan beberapa industri yang kita laksanakan. Sebab itu kita saksikan bahawa tarif itu berbeza-beza mengikut produk. Sebagai contoh, kalau di peringkat antarabangsa, Jerman mengenakan tarif yang tinggi terhadap produk otomotif Amerika Syarikat, tetapi Amerika Syarikat tidak mengenakan tarif yang tinggi terhadap produk auto ataupun Continental dari Jerman. Sebagai contoh, kerana penggunaannya begitu besar di Amerika Syarikat. Kesannya yang kita ingin lihat adalah bagaimanakah ini akan meningkatkan inflasi di negara Uncle Sam tersebut. Ini kita belum melihat lagi kesannya. Dan persoalan paling penting adalah bagaimana untuk Malaysia memberikan reaksi segera. Okey, saya ingin tunjukkan juga perbezaan defisit perdagangan antara negara-negara yang disenaraikan oleh Donald Trump. Kalau kita boleh tunjukkan, ini adalah grafnya yang disediakan. Yang pertama sekali paling besar sekali adalah China. Defisitnya adalah $295 bilion dengan Amerika Syarikat. Ini bermakna China mengeksport lebih banyak berbanding mengimport. Maknanya dia jual barangan ke Amerika Syarikat lebih besar berbanding dia beli barangan Amerika Syarikat. China nombor satu. Malaysia kedua terbawah itu kalau anda saksikan dengan defisit $25 bilion. Ini adalah apa yang dikeluarkan oleh Reuters sebentar tadi, menyebabkan Malaysia tersenarai dalam senarai tarif timbal balik yang diumumkan oleh Trump sebentar saja tadi. Ini antara negara-negara utama yang dikenakan. Ada beberapa negara lagi, semua negara yang berdagang dengan Trump, dengan Amerika Syarikat dikenakan tarif timbal balik tersebut. Sudah pasti yang paling besar, dan kita telah pun dengarkan sebelum ini adalah China, Kesatuan Eropah, Meksiko, Kanada dan sebagainya. Tetapi kita sudah pasti melihat bahawa Meksiko dan Kanada itu sudah pun diumumkan tarif timbal baliknya pada awal, iaitu sekitar 25%. Dan bagaimana untuk mereka menyesuaikan keadaan ini dengan perjanjian perdagangan bebas yang mereka telah tangani sebelum ini, itu persoalan yang besar juga untuk kita lihat. Namun setakat ini yang kita tahu, ini adalah defisit dagangan Malaysia dan juga Amerika Syarikat, 25 bilion, kedua terbawah tersebut. Dan pada masa sama, kalau anda lihat dua ke bawah itu Malaysia dikenakan 24% tarif timbal balik. Bagaimanakah kesannya kepada perdagangan Malaysia? Saya nak membincangkan perkara ini bersama dengan pakar kita yang telah pun bersedia di talian pada ketika ini, Profesor Madya Dr. Aimi Zul Hazmi Abdul Rashid, penganalisis ekonomi di KL Business School. Assalamualaikum Doktor, terima kasih kerana bersama dengan Niaga Awani pada jam ini. 24%. Bagaimana kita fahami apakah sebenarnya tarif timbal balik ini dan bagaimana ini boleh menjejaskan hubungan dagang Malaysia dan juga Amerika Syarikat dari segi mungkin harga barangan tersebut dan pedagang-pedagang kita sendiri, Doktor?
Waalaikumsalam Najib, selamat pagi semua. Okey, terima kasih. Ini satu topik yang panas pada pagi ini selepas pengumuman oleh Trump semalam. Okey, kalau kita dengar pasal 24% mungkin pakat menggigil lah. Tapi sebenarnya kalau kita faham bahawa 60% daripada ekspor Malaysia ke Amerika Syarikat merupakan barangan semikonduktor. Dan ini melibatkan company ataupun syarikat seperti Infineon, Intel dan pelbagai lagi lah. Dan apa yang juga kata pula ini akan menakutkan juga kerana mungkin syarikat-syarikat ini akan tutup kilang dia yang telah berpuluh-puluh tahun di Pulau Pinang, di Kelang, dan akan berpindah keluar daripada Malaysia. Sebenarnya kalau kita telusuri syarikat-syarikat Amerika Syarikat itu juga yang merupakan sebahagian daripada rantaian global nilai bergantung sebenarnya besar di mana Malaysia merupakan pengeksport 1/3 daripada semikonduktor dunia. Jadi tarif Trump sebenarnya akan membentuk satu paradigma baru dalam perdagangan dunia di mana dunia akan berubah tanpa bergantung pada pasaran Amerika Syarikat sendiri. Dan selama ini merupakan pengimport terbesar di dunia untuk hampir semua barangan maupun barang perkhidmatan. Jadi rantaian nilai pelbagai industri sebenarnya dijangka akan melalui penstrukturan semula secara besar-besaran dalam tempoh jangka pendek, terutama dalam survival mereka bagi jangka masa panjang, termasuklah syarikat seperti multinational sendiri yang telah tertapak di Malaysia dan juga merupakan yang terbesar di dunia lah dalam hampir semua industri. Contohnya seperti saya katakan tadi, semikonduktor, IT, telekomunikasi, minyak dan gas, hartanah, makanan, pharmaceutical. Kalau kita telusuri, kebanyakan syarikat ini adalah syarikat-syarikat yang malah the top 10 syarikat terbesar di dunia adalah merupakan syarikat multinational syarikat daripada Amerika Syarikat sendiri. Jadi bagaimanakah kita melihat sendiri sebelum kita membuat reaksi, kita perlu juga melihat bagaimanakah syarikat MNC, AS ini juga, Amerika Syarikat juga melaksanakan strategi mereka sendiri. Bagaimana mereka mengimbangkan antara political situation di negara mereka sendiri dengan sebab mereka sebagai sebuah MNC yang mempunyai operasi yang begitu meluas di seluruh dunia dan juga mempunyai pasaran di seluruh dunia. Dengan apa yang berlaku di Amerika Syarikat, dengan barangan yang akan masuk ke Amerika Syarikat, adakah ia menyebabkan barangan yang diimport, seperti Najib katakan tadi, secara mudah barangan yang diimport ke Amerika Syarikat menjadi lebih mahal, dan barangan ekspor keluaran Amerika Syarikat pula akan menjadi lebih mahal apabila timbal balas daripada negara yang lain. Justru menjadikan keluaran ataupun produk yang menjadi tidak lagi kompetitif. Jadi kini ini kita dapat lihat, dan saya tertarik juga dengan poin yang diberikan awal tadi oleh Najib, di mana dikatakan China mengenakan tarif yang tinggi dan Amerika Syarikat. Tapi kalau kita lihat, ini sebenarnya telah berlaku sebelum semasa zaman Presiden Biden lagi, iaitu semasa berlakunya Chips War, di zaman Chips War. Di mana dalam zaman itu pun Amerika Syarikat telah mengenakan pelbagai tarif ataupun penalti kita kata penalti lah kepada barangan daripada China. Jadi secara langsung strategi yang sama telah dipakai oleh banyak syarikat Amerika Syarikat untuk mengubah pelaburan mereka ke negara lain seperti di Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, dan pada masa ini kita dapat melihat bagaimana negara seperti Vietnam kenapa Vietnam menerima tarif yang lebih tinggi daripada kita 24%, saya rasa mungkin Vietnam lebih daripada Malaysia. Jadi jangan hanya melihat Malaysia, tapi kita harus melihat pada keseluruhan makro ataupun keseluruhan apa yang berlaku di peringkat perdagangan dunia, Najib.
Dr. Ami, ini usaha Trump, mungkin gambarannya lebih besar lagi, tapi usaha Trump pernah katakan bahawa kalau tidak mahu kena tarif timbal balik ataupun tarif tambahan dan sebagainya, laburlah di Amerika Syarikat. Mungkin syarikat-syarikat kita bukan berkapasiti seperti itu untuk ke pasaran Amerika Syarikat, dan ini nyata tidak adil, sudah pasti. Tapi bagaimana untuk membaca bahawa kesan langsungnya kepada pengeluar di peringkat Malaysia? Dr. Ami sentuh tadi pengeluar-pengeluar Amerika Syarikat yang berada di sini untuk mengeksport E&E mereka akan jadi lebih mahal. Tapi untuk pengusaha tempatan sendiri, produk kita yang memang sememangnya kita mungkin ekspor ke sana dalam bentuk komponen dan sebagainya. Apa kesan langsung yang boleh kita gambarkan melalui pengenaan ataupun pelaksanaan 24% tarif timbal balik ini?
Itu yang saya katakan tadi, kita harus melihat dari aspek makronya, di mana dia industri seperti E&E dan semikonduktor ini dia bukanlah tertumpu pada satu negara, Malaysia sahaja, China, Vietnam. Dia tidak. Dia mempunyai rangkuman rantai nilainya sendiri dan dia terletak di pelbagai negara. Jadi kalaulah Amerika Syarikat hanya mengatakan baik, saya tak akan mengenakan tarif yang lebih tinggi, dan kita mahu melihat banyak produk-produk berubah ataupun kilang-kilang daripada Intang misalnya, daripada Pinang balik ke California misalnya Tapi itu bukan sesuatu yang mudah dicapai dalam satu jangka masa yang pendek, kerana ia bukan hanya dari segi barang, dia juga memerlukan kepakaran, iaitu termasuklah ekspertis, teknologi dan juga komponen dan maupun vendor-vendor yang telah pun establish selama berpuluhan tahun dalam satu industri. Ya, kalau kita melihat aspek yang terpencil, mungkin kita ini mudahlah bagi Amerika Syarikat, tapi sebenarnya tidak mudah. Dan syarikat multinasional seperti Intel sendiri ataupun yang insinyur sendiri akan pastinya akan pecah kepala lah memikirkan strategi macam mana mereka harus mengatur kembali rantai nilai mereka. Kerana mereka sebenarnya terlalu bergantung kepada rantai nilai dunia, dan bukan hanya sebagai pembuatan di Amerika Syarikat, tapi bila mereka juga perlu mengeksport juga barangan itu ke luar negara. Jadi kalau negara lain juga mengenakan tarif yang sama ke atas barangan yang diekspor daripada Amerika Syarikat, jadi siapa lagi nak membeli barangannya? Ini yang kita harus melihat dari segi aspek keseluruhan. Tapi bagi saya lah, mungkin pada masa yang sama kerajaan Amerika Syarikat juga menghadapi masalah dari segi kutipan cukai yang kurang, pendapatan yang kurang, menyebabkan dia menghadapi masalah dari segi defisit pendapatan. Jadi mungkin Trump melihat ini salah satu strategi jangka pendek untuk mendapatkan sedikit pulangan untuk membantu kewangan. Itulah pada pandangan saya mungkin. Tapi kesannya kepada perdagangan dunia memang cukup hebat, dan kita dapat tahu pada hari ini pun sudah banyak pasaran-pasaran bursa saham dunia terus merah lah Najib hari ini. Ya,
Dr. Aimee, adakah doktor menjangkakan bahawa sebab ramai penganalisis mengatakan bahawa akan wujud serangan balas dari negara ini, mungkin negara-negara besar ada kapasiti untuk membalas dari segi tarif ini, namun untuk negara-negara seperti Malaysia, Vietnam, Laos, Kemboja yang mana dikenakan pada kadar sehingga 46%, 48%, 24%, adakah akan ada serangan balas tarif tersebut menurut pandangan Dr. Aimee sendiri?
Bagi saya, dia tidak akan, kalau mereka yang bijak, mereka tidak akan melakukan serangan balas itu, tindak balas itu dengan secara solo. Apa yang mereka perlu buat adalah memberi satu kesatuan. Contohnya ASEAN sendiri, ataupun trade block sendiri. Mereka kata okey, ASEAN akan mengenakan timbal balas kepada barangan daripada Amerika Syarikat. Jadi itu lebih mantap lah. Lebih tersusun dan lebih berstruktur berbanding hanya katanya Laos ataupun Vietnam hanya mengenakan tarif itu sendiri. Jadi saya pasti negara-negara perdagangan mereka tahu saiz ekonomi Malaysia, dan mereka juga saiz ekonomi mereka, dan juga mereka tahu betapa pentingnya jaringan pasaran di Amerika Syarikat. Walaupun kita, contohnya kita banyak berdagang dengan China. China merupakan rakan dagang kita yang terbesar mungkin 14 tahun, 15 tahun yang lalu. Tetapi agar barang kita ekspor ke China juga diproses di China dan juga diekspor ke Amerika Syarikat. Jadi sekiranya kesemua negara macam dunia versus Amerika Syarikat lah, menyusun kembali, dan kerana mereka tahu, kerana prinsip ataupun apa yang dibuat oleh Trump ini amatlah berlawanan dengan konsep World Trade ataupun WTO yang Amerika Syarikat sendiri yang telah menandatangani. Begitu juga dengan pelbagai trade block yang seperti NAFTA dan pelbagai lagi. Jadi ini sesuatu yang akan mengubah, seperti saya katakan tadi, akan merubah paradigma perdagangan dunia sebenarnya, Najib.
Doktor apabila menyebut tentang akan mengubah paradigma perdagangan dunia, ini satu perkataan yang mungkin besar untuk kebanyakan orang faham. Tapi itu realiti yang berlaku sekarang. Gambarannya lebih besar saya sebutkan tadi. Bagaimana untuk kita baca bahawa end game dia, apakah yang akan kita saksikan daripada segala tindakan ini? Tarif adalah salah satu tindakan yang diambil oleh kepimpinan Trump. Mungkin ada beberapa perkara lagi yang akan dilaksanakan. Dan selain end game, apa mungkin kesannya secara besar yang boleh kita jangkakan terhadap perdagangan global sebagai contoh, dan juga badan-badan global bertindak terhadap perkara ini? Apa yang boleh Dr. Aimee jangkakan dalam aspek ini?
WTO telah membuat unjuran, begitu juga dengan World Bank pada awal sebelum nombor-nombor yang dikeluarkan oleh Trump, bahawa perdagangan dunia akan menyusut. Kalau di end game tu pertama, perdagangan dunia akan merosot seperti jangkaan awal, dan kini kita telah jelas dengan angka-angka tarif-tarif yang diberikan oleh Amerika Syarikat specifically untuk setiap negara, maka kita dapat menjangkakan, kerana kita juga perlu melihat pada setiap industri juga yang contohnya Vietnam, China dan pelbagai lagi. Itu satu. Kedua, adakah ini memberikan kesan besar kepada kemelesetan ekonomi dunia? Ini persoalan yang besar ni, kerana Amerika Syarikat merupakan ekonomi terbesar dunia dengan lebih daripada 20, tak silap saya, lebih daripada 25 trilion. Dan ia juga merupakan pasaran terbesar pelbagai barangan. Dan juga Amerika Syarikat merupakan, seperti saya katakan tadi, the top biggest companies, syarikat terbesar di dunia adalah daripada Amerika Syarikat. Jadi adakah the game nanti, adakah World Bank, WTO, World Bank yang sebenarnya dikawal oleh Amerika Syarikat juga, akan membuat sesuatu ataupun perkara yang akan dibawa kepada bangsa-bangsa bersatu sebagai satu agenda perbincangan di antara negara, kerana jelas bahawa Amerika Syarikat telah melanggar prinsip-prinsip kebebasan untuk berdagang. Jadi seperti saya katakan tadi, saya kata paradigma perubahan, bagaimana dunia perlu belajar tidak terlalu bergantung, tidak terlalu memfokuskan kepada Amerika Syarikat menjadi pembeli ataupun penjual utama barang Amerika.
Tidak terlampau fokus kepada Amerika Syarikat ini satu tugas yang tidak mudah, Dr. Aimi, kerana rantaian ekonomi itu sebegitu rupa keadaannya. Apa mungkin Dr. Aimi jangkakan langkah yang boleh dilihat Malaysia, blok ASEAN dalam memilih rakan dagang yang tepat untuk memastikan kestabilan jangka masa panjang, supaya apabila kita berdepan dengan serangan tarif seperti ini, kita sudah bersedia di masa hadapan, kerana ini sudah pun diset presidennya oleh Amerika Syarikat, oleh Donald Trump sendiri. Kita perlu berhati-hati selepas ini di masa hadapan supaya tidak lagi kita berdepan dengan kesukaran seperti ini. Dr. Aimi.
ASEAN ini kita tidak hanya boleh menjadi sebuah political bloc, dan kita harus melihat secara serius bagaimana ASEAN ini menjadi sebuah trade bloc. Selama ini kita punya masalah bila kita untuk menengahkan ASEAN ini sebagai trade bloc. Kerana apa? Kerana kebanyakan produk-produk yang kita keluarkan adalah lebih kurang. Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam, kereta dan pelbagai lagi adalah yang sama. Peluang-peluang yang dibawa masuk oleh negara-negara lain juga adalah kepada rantau ASEAN ini adalah produk-produk yang sama. Jadi sukar untuk kita menyelenggarakan untuk membuatkan ASEAN ini lebih kompetitif dalam sebagai sebuah trade bloc. Okey, sekarang kita bermula dengan Amerika Syarikat, dan apa yang kita dapat lihat adalah bahawa konsep perdagangan dunia dahulu pada tahun 80-an, tahun 90-an maupun tahun 2000 adalah konsep keterbukaan. Sebab itulah kita mempunyai pelbagai Malaysia disuruh menyertai pelbagai trade bloc antarabangsa seperti AFTA, NAFTA dan sebagainya. Tapi kini dunia terbalik. Masing-masing merasakan, saya rasa ini bermula semasa pandemik, apabila contohnya India pada semasa mengatakan bahawa saya tidak akan mahu mengeksport barangan keluaran makanan saya kerana untuk rakyat saya pun tak mencukupi. Begitu juga berlaku di Eropah. Jadi itu mungkin tidak sampai, tapi bunga-bunga tu dah ada, Najib. Dan pada masa sama kita melihat bagaimana Amerika Syarikat sendiri merasakan bahawa mereka harus merubah struktur ekonomi mereka sendiri yang terlalu bergantung kepada situasi dunia dan menyebabkan ekonomi domestik mereka rosak, walaupun ekonomi dunia mereka mengawal dan sebagainya dengan dolar Amerika Syarikat menjadi mata wang dunia. Tapi hakikatnya banyak syarikat-syarikat Amerika Syarikat sendiri sebenarnya kaya tetapi tidak beroperasi di Amerika Syarikat, malah beroperasi di luar negara. Ini dilihat oleh Trump. Jadi kita tak boleh katakan apa yang dibuat rasionalisasi yang dibuat oleh Trump itu salah, tapi dia melihat dari aspek negara dia. Tapi pada masa yang sama ASEAN ni kita harus melihat bagaimana Malaysia terutamanya sebagai sebagai pengurusi ASEAN patut melihat ini sebagai lebih serius, bagaimana menjadikan ASEAN dengan keupayaan dengan GDP sebanyak 4 trilion US dollars dengan penduduk lebih kurang 600 juta ringgit menjadi satu kuasa ekonomi yang penting. Bagaimana itu yang kita harus lihat dari segi aspek itu.
Okey. Dr. Aimi, terima kasih kerana meluangkan masa bersama dengan Niaga Awani pada pagi ini. Profesor Madya Dr. Aimi Zul Hazmi Abdul Rashid, pengartis ekonomi UKL Business School. Kita melihat kepada apa yang diumumkan oleh Donald Trump berkaitan dengan tarif timbal balik yang dibentangkan sebentar saja tadi. Baik, sudah pasti kita ingin melihat juga pasaran Amerika Syarikat sejak Donald Trump mengumumkan perkara tersebut, di mana pasaran saham Amerika Syarikat mengalami turun naik sepanjang hari sebelum akhirnya ditutup lebih tinggi pada Rabu. Dan juga pada awal dagangan, indeks utama jatuh tetapi kembali naik apabila pelabur mengambil langkah berjaga-jaga menjelang pengumuman tarif besar oleh Presiden Donald Trump.
Sejak kebelakangan ini, pasaran Amerika Syarikat tidak stabil kerana pelabur cuba menilai sejauh mana kesan tarif terhadap ekonomi global, inflasi dan keuntungan syarikat. Indeks volatility CBOE yang mengukur tahap kebimbangan pelabur kekal tinggi sejak pertengahan Mac. Setakat ini, tarif ke atas kalori, aluminium dan kenderaan sudah diumumkan. Namun butiran penuh mengenai langkah tarif Trump hanya akan didedahkan dalam satu majlis rasmi di White House pada petang itu. Pelabur sedang menunggu kepastian tentang barangan yang akan dikenakan tarif serta cara pelaksanaannya. Laporan juga menyebut bahawa Trump mungkin mengenakan tarif universal sebanyak 20%. Pada akhir dagangan, S&P 500 naik 37.90 mata atau 0.67% kepada 5,670.97, manakala Nasdaq meningkat 151.16 mata atau 0.87% kepada 17,601.05. Dow Jones bertambah 235.36 mata atau 0.56% kepada 42,225.32.
If this just isn't a strategic ploy to try to, bargain one-on-one with other countries to bring tariffs down on both sides, if this leads to an environment where there's higher tariffs globally for a sustained period of time, I think it could be quite significant. At sort of an economy level, the foundation of a strong economy is one in which people can specialize in what they do best. And the same holds for a global economy. Like the foundation for a strong global economy is when nations can specialize in the production of goods or services that they can do best. And, having no barriers to trade, makes the economy more efficient and provides sort of a solid foundation. So my concern would be that if these tariffs are long lasting, it could have quite significant effects on, the foundations of global economies. In this event, the White House and President Trump revealed their strategy and their rationale behind imposing tariffs, but they did not sort of tie it to sort of the administration's broader economic plan. And so I think it'll reduce uncertainty about, is this product going to be, hit by a tariff on, some specific unknown date in the future or not. So it'll be more predictable in terms of what future tariffs are likely to be, but it's unclear how that relates to this administration's economic objectives. And I'm not entirely clear what their economic objectives are. It seems to be just more isolationist, but I think that will end up, yielding a sort of a more constrained economy. I mean, so if I think we're going to apply it against a broad swath of countries on everything we import, I mean, I think, all products could get more expensive. I mean, I think the case with Taiwan is that we import a number of computer chips from them. And so, downstream from that is if computer chips become more expensive, then, perhaps personal computers become more expensive. Perhaps companies that rely on large services to conduct business like Netflix or, places that are building large service farms, maybe it'll get more expensive for, them to sort of produce their output. And so I think it's somewhat across the board.
Okey, sedikit panjang apa yang diperkatakan oleh penganalisis tersebut, tapi ingin saya melihat bahawa apa yang beliau jangkakan akan berlaku kenaikan harga barang yang tinggi, khususnya di Amerika Syarikat. Now, mengapa perkara ini sangat penting? Kerana apa yang berlaku di Amerika Syarikat akan memberikan kesan kepada kita. Amerika Syarikat, ekonomi secara tempatan sedang bergelut untuk mengawal inflasi, dan sekiranya inflasi itu berubah, the Fed, iaitu kira bank pusat mereka lah, akan mengubah kadar dana mereka. Dan jika ini berubah, kebanyakan kadar kita seperti OPR juga akan mungkin berubah disebabkan oleh faktor tersebut. Maksudnya, sekiranya inflasi mereka terjejas akibat pelaksanaan tarif ini, maka the Fed mungkin akan mengambil tindakan untuk tidak memotong kadar faedah mereka, dan ini juga mungkin akan mencerminkan keperluan negara-negara lain termasuk juga Malaysia untuk mengubah kedudukan OPR kita sama ada lebih tinggi ataupun lebih rendah. Itu persoalannya lebih besar. Maksudnya apa yang berlaku di Amerika Syarikat dengan ekonomi mereka yang mungkin terjejas akibat pengenalan tarif ini akan turut menjejaskan ekonomi khususnya di rantau ini termasuk juga Malaysia. Okey, sudah pasti tidak sah kita ingin melihat juga pasaran Amerika Syarikat S&P 500 pasca pengumuman Trump tersebut. Seperti kita bincangkan tadi, semua adalah lebih positif, hijau. Kalau kita saksikan beberapa saham utama seperti yang anda saksikan, Apple sebagai contoh setakat pagi ini peningkatan 0.31% sesudah pengumuman Trump tersebut, di mana syarikat Apple ini telah pun didenda. Ini antara beritanya, didenda sebanyak 150 juta euro oleh pengawal selia anti-monopoli Perancis pada Isnin lepas, dan denda ini dikenakan kerana Apple sendiri didakwa menyalahgunakan kedudukan dominannya dalam pengiklanan aplikasi mudah alih melalui alat kawalan privasi pada peranti mereka. Dan ini juga merupakan kali pertama mana-mana pengawal selia anti-monopoli mengenakan denda berkaitan dengan alat App Tracking Transparency ataupun ATT milik Apple sendiri. Itu berkaitan dengan Apple, saham Apple. Tetapi pada masa sama juga kita melihat saham-saham yang lain. Google sebagai contoh agak mendata pada dagangan semalam. Kalau kita bertunjukkan Google punya saham pada ketika ini, Google sahamnya adalah negatif 0.01% penurunannya sejak pengumuman oleh Trump sendiri. Tetapi kalau kita melihat kepada berita antara yang berkait dengan Google, syarikat Alphabet, ini parent company, pemilik Google sendiri telah pun mengumumkan perubahan kepimpinan dalam bahagian kecerdasan buatan AI mereka. Ini persaingan yang sangat sengit di mana Sisi Xiao yang akan mengetahui pembangunan chatbot AI ataupun BART akan meletakkan jawatan serta-merta. Ini adalah soal bagaimana untuk Google bersaing dengan pengeluar-pengeluar pembina-pembina AI yang lain, di mana menurut jurucakap syarikat Josh Woodward yang sebelum ini mengetuai Google Labs dan juga melancarkan alat notebook LM, sebuah aplikasi yang boleh menukar teks kepada kandungan seperti podcast, akan menggantikan Xiao. Maksudnya Josh ini akan menggantikan Xiao sebagai kepimpinan utama dalam pembangunan AI di Google sendiri. Okey, bukan sahaja Google, kita ingin melihat Meta juga di sebelah Google tersebut. Kalau kita boleh bawakan grafnya. Meta setakat pada pagi ini dagangan di S&P 500 sendiri di pasaran utama pada malam tadi menyaksikan penurunan 0.35%. Tetapi kalau kita melihat kesemua saham-saham yang lain seperti Microsoft juga ada penurunan sedikit 0.01%, tapi secara keseluruhannya data di sini adalah hijau. Nvidia di bawah ini adalah peningkatan 0.24%, diikuti oleh juga Oracle sendiri peningkatan 2.76%. Kalau kita melihat kepada otomotif seperti yang kita selalu bawakan, Tesla di bawah ini, Tesla meningkat 5.33% sahamnya pada pagi ini. Bagaimana untuk kita membaca bahawa semua saham-saham ini, khususnya saham-saham berkaitan dengan semikonduktor yang mana pengenalan tarif timbal balik ini ada mungkin kena-mengena dengan kesan tersebut, termasuk juga Broadcom sendiri peningkatan 2.12% di dagangan pada malam tadi di Amerika Syarikat. Semua ini menggambarkan bahawa reaksi segera pasaran terhadap pengumuman Trump tersebut, bagaimanakah ini akan menjejaskan keadaan dari masa ke masa. Astro AWANI akan perhatikan dan juga ingin melihat kesan ini khususnya kepada Malaysia juga, dan bagaimanakah tindak balas dunia pada akhirnya terhadap tarif timbal balik oleh Donald Trump ini. Kita berhenti seketika, kita kembali selepas ini.
Malaysia sebenarnya berada di kedudukan kedua terburuk di dunia berkaitan keseimbangan hidup dan kerja.
LRT3 sudah akan mula beroperasi suku ketiga 2025. Kerja-kerja fizikal dan penstrukturan sudah mencecah 95%. KPM sebenarnya sedang memperincikan cadangan untuk menyediakan allowance kos sara hidup tingkatan 6. Libat urus antara umat Islam dan agama lain penting supaya dapat mengelakkan ataupun membawa kepada Islamofobia.
All right, for this segment, we're going to be focused on environment, logistics, and even the economic impact, with transportation contributing 29% of Malaysia's fossil fuel emissions and even urban congestion and pollution that demands urgent solutions. And we can see Diolco, in partnership with Prasarana, is tackling this crisis by leveraging the rapid KL rail system for last mile delivery, cutting carbon emission by 70% and easing traffic. And from this, expanding with 15 new delivery hubs and future MRT integrations, this initiative drives Malaysia towards its 2050 net zero goals while setting a new standard for sustainable logistics. And join us in the studio is Ono Prifer, the co-founder and COO of Diolco, and Ashok Panchaligam, acting Chief Executive Officer, Prasarana Integrated Development Cedar Berhad Pride, who will be helping us unveil how this pioneering partnership in reshaping urban mobility and green commerce. And for that, I want to say thank you very much for joining us. How are you?
Very good. Thank you for having us.
Ashok,
Cheers.
okay.
Very good. Yeah, very good.
And for this conversation, we're going to be focusing on unveil how this pioneering partnership is reshaping urban mobility and even green commerce. Firstly, we're going to start with Ono first, probably with Diolco side, with traffic congestion costs Malaysia billions of ringgit annually. And how does a Diolco rail-based delivery model improve logistic efficiency while reducing urban traffic? What are the key costs for cost saving and for businesses?
Yeah. First of all, thank you for having us. You're absolutely right. There was a study done by Prasarana in 2020 where they looked at the impact of congestion, and it amounts to roughly 20 billion ringgit. That was in 2020, and it's only increasing every year. So you can imagine that today it's even higher. What we do at Diolco, we aim to pioneer a sustainable last mile delivery by leveraging underutilized city infrastructure such as public transport, so the LRT network in this case, and electrical vehicle technology. So what does it actually mean? If somebody orders something online in any web shop, we pick up the goods from the warehouse with electrical vehicles, we bring it to the train station, we then bring it as close as possible to the final recipient, and then do the final piece with electrical vehicle again. So it's really a green, fully electric delivery service, which is new and has not done. It's first in the region. And what this helps is it reduces both the carbon emissions. So we started our pilot in July last year, so 2024, and we already achieved 70% carbon emission savings. So that's direct savings in terms of the environment, but also more importantly, there's indirect savings, because instead of taking the road transport, we're actually using the public transport network to move traffic from the roads onto the public transport. And effectively reducing traffic congestion, which impacts everybody in their daily life, in their daily commute, and impacts businesses from a commercial point of view as well.
Overall, we can see it's a very cost efficient and also sustainable, and with a long-term agenda, with plans to expand around to 15 additional delivery hubs. Maybe Ashok can share with us how scalable is this model across Klang Valley. We can start with.
Okay, so you know, if you think about it, right, logistics is everywhere. Now, in Klang Valley itself, we are talking about Selangor, Kuala Lumpur, right? And our rail network actually covers most parts of Klang Valley, right? Northern, southern, eastern, Western in the near future. So we've got over 90 stations that we can potentially turn into delivery hubs as well. Now, no doubt, the LRT system is always for passengers. That's the number one. But there's nothing stopping innovation now, and that's what we are trying to drive through. Innovation and sustainability, right? So scalable, 15 that we are targeting in 2027. We think it can grow a lot more, maybe 4 times more in the coming years. Yeah. So we are targeting a bigger growth, right, in the coming years. We think most of our stations can turn into like a logistics hub.
And this is a very amazing collaboration between public and private partnership. Maybe we can start with Ono share. From the private perspective, share the experience and the journey working the public partnership to ensure a very, not only a safer logistic delivery, but also a very cost efficient, also adapting if innovations. Probably can share with us.
Yes, of course. So yes, this has actually been a long journey because, as you can imagine, this is not a common approach where we're using public transport for delivery of parcels. So there was actually a lot of work done beforehand to make sure that we do this in a safe manner. So we've been working together with Prasarana in terms of the SOPs to make sure that everything runs smoothly. As Mr. Ashok already mentioned, the commuters go first, so they always have the first priority. And what we do is actually leverage any excess capacity that is available there. So, for example, it wouldn't be during peak hours because that's the first priority is the commuters. What we're looking at is really the after hours during the evening to nights where there's a lot of capacity that we can repurpose for delivery of parcels. Similarly, we've worked together with APAD, so the regulator, to make sure that the way we do it is done in a safe manner. We're talking about a bold vision of reducing carbon emissions. So we're not talking about one package a day, we're talking about thousands, tens of thousands, and ultimately 100,000 packages a day that we can transport using public transport. So that needs to be done in a safe manner, and we need to scale it in a secure way. So we've designed our own proprietary trolleys. These have been designed and manufactured here in Malaysia, specifically for the purpose to move on public transport. They've been validated by APAD as well. We've tested them, and in that way we can ensure that we can move larger amounts in a safe manner without impacting the commuter's journey from a safety but also from a comfort point of view.
Ashok, how do you see this impacted the public transportation, especially within, firstly, you mentioned that we include, number one was the passenger that we will focus on, but now we included or insert with logistic as the innovation and technology, AI, are driving very fast. Sometimes some of us can't even keep up. So maybe from the Prasarana part.
So when we met them, and then when someone tells you, let's use public transport for logistics, the first thing is there's a crazy man in the house. Yeah, but honestly, if you think about it, right, we've got excess capacity.
Okay.
Peak hours, we are full like sardines, right? But off peak hours, there's so much of available capacity, right?
Correct.
So, let's do something different. Now, as Prasarana, right, investment into public transport is huge. Government puts in a lot of money. It's really huge. Yeah? Now, we earn money through ticket sales, for people to travel. But how can we maximize our infrastructure? How can we earn more? How can we actually help the government reduce their investments too, right? So, when they came with the idea, we thought, oh my, this is, something that we can't, whether we can do it or not.
Yeah, we're going to transport people, now you want to transport things.
Yeah,
how can we do it?
Exactly, and the investment was all about transporting people, right? So, but what we thought is, okay, let's do it. If you can transport people, you can transport goods. Yeah, that's number one. Goods can't read, so you have to actually move them manually, right? Yeah. So we did it. We did a POC over a 6 months period. It's proved really successful. People are happy. We are happy because it's helping the investments for the government too, right? Reducing the investments. So moving people is still priority. That will never change. Safety is number one. But with the excess capacity, we can now move other things through. which is goods and services.
Goods and services. And what safeguards are in place to ensure that community services remain unaffected? Because we know along the way doing delivery, thousands of delivery a day, sometimes we may face obstacles along the way. Then how can we ensure that both not only the people but also the services and goods are safe?
So I think what we have done is prior to going live, right, we did a lot of testing, right, especially with the trolley that they innovated, right, and we even went up to the part of testing it with emergency brake. So emergency brake is when the train suddenly stops, right, and the trolley was completely fine, not affected at all. Our infra was also fine; it was not affected at all. Yeah, so that innovation was great. Yeah, that actually helped. So. We did a lot of testing before we actually went live, and we also, because it's the first time anyone is doing it, right? What we did was we started off with trains that do not carry passengers at the start, right? So we started off with these late night trains, which just covers the network without passengers in it. But slowly now we are going with off-peak. Yeah, that's what we are aiming to do in the future. So even though there are people inside, we have tested it. It looks fine for the last 6 months. So now let's scale up.
Are these processes still in trial mode or how?
No. So I think we finished the POC back in January, February.
Okay.
Yeah, 6 months was until end of January. So now we're going full scale.
Also, from what that Delco pilots face achieve a 70% reductions in carbon emission. How does this align with Malaysia's green economy goals, and what are the long-term commercial benefits that we can see or probably have for businesses that using your services?
Yep. So yeah, there's clearly, in terms of the carbon reductions, it fits into the goal of the government in terms of the emission savings. So if you look at today's market and the industries, transportation is one of the, let's say, bigger contributors in terms of carbon emissions. Obviously, it's a very broad industry, so it really encompasses everything, but logistics definitely is a part of that. So what we aim to do is to reduce the carbon emissions there. A lot of companies have those ambitions, but it takes a long time to really replace vehicles from traditional ICE vehicles, so that's the combustion engines, to electric vehicles. And what we're doing now is accelerating that transition to a more cleaner energy approach. And there's the public transport is a big piece of that. So if you look at the carbon emission savings to date, so far around 50% comes from using the train. Because the train is more efficient, but also because we don't use the road transport, so we avoid traffic jams and things like that. And the rest comes from the electrical vehicles. So those two combined ultimately result into these carbon emissions. Right now we have at the pilot phase, we've only operated 3 stations, and we already achieved the 70%. So once we expand the network, we can actually increase those carbon emissions even more, because what we ultimately do is we localize delivery. So instead of having vehicles going back and forth to the warehouses outside the city, we actually have the drivers go to the local station, pick up the goods, do their delivery locally. And that's where the biggest benefit comes. And yeah, this directly impacts the carbon emission saving targets that the government of Malaysia as a country has. And it will impact everybody's daily life with cleaner air, more comfortable urban living environment.
It's kind of amazing discussion here, realizing that not only the logistics transportation sector is also not only contributing to the economy benefits, but also contributing to the carbon emissions, which we have here with Delco is also an initiative to maximize the public we can say public infrastructure, and also with the help of Prasarana in achieving the carbon net zero, and also talking about beyond environmental gains. What about how does this initiative create even job opportunities? What are some of the new skills that are in demand to support the innovative of this delivery system? Probably we can start with Delco first.
Yes. So what we do is new. So this hasn't been done in Malaysia, even the rest of Southeast Asia and the region. So first of all, all the work that we do on the train is managed by our own staff. So these are people that we train in terms of how to safely transport goods on public transport. All our drivers, they use electrical vehicles. So it's not only do we hire people, and so far everybody we hired are Malaysians, the talent pool that we've tapped into. We train them in terms of the use of electrical vehicles. So it's not just creating jobs, but it's also upskilling their set and making sure that they're ready for the energy transition. Operating electrical vehicles is very different from a traditional vehicle. It is easy to learn, but you need to go through that journey and get used to it. So we create jobs as a company in terms of delivery service of using public transport. It's not being done today, so those are new jobs. But also in terms of using electrical vehicles. And on top of that, what we have is our software platform, which is in essence the brains behind the operations. Because as you can imagine, if you operate multiple networks, there's a lot of complexity going behind it to plan that. So our platform manages that. So we also have a software development team that develops that. There's also our algorithm that optimizes the routes. And we already use AI to kind of optimize it as much as we can. So those are also jobs for ranging from a development point of view. So we both have warehousing staff, we have riders, drivers, and software development. So it's a wide range of jobs that are coming out of initiative of this, and it's all future ready for once more and more companies are transitioning towards the future. And yeah, so far all our staff, they also like to work on something that's green transition. It's new, it's something exciting.
New, right? Very exciting.
And you're contributing to a better kind of living environment. So it is something different from a typical job.
And we are ready for it. How about from the Prasarana side, because we want to take a look at the readiness of the industry, because this is quite something new, or one of the first in Southeast Asia even. Probably we can say, is Prasarana or from the transportation industry as a service provider ready for this, we can say, revolution in terms of services?
So, you know, when you drive innovation, you're also driving entrepreneurship, yeah? The operations is all done by Dualco. Right, so when we are we are supporting them. When we support them, they grow as well, and they actually start getting new people supporting this industry. Now, on our side, what we do is we do a lot of upskilling. We handle people. That's our job. We used to handle people. We are experts in handling people, but we're not handling people anymore. We're now handling trolleys, right? So it's about upskilling the people. Getting them to now understand how is it to not just handle people, but also to handle logistics, right? So we do a lot of upskilling of our people, right? And we help entrepreneurship. So that's our contribution to the whole game.
This is a very good partnership collaboration, as we not only seeing a transformation within the logistic and even transportation industry with this delivery goods of services, but we also are seeing a revolution of workforce transformation within the logistic industry. With this partnership, what are some of the key challenges in scaling a public-private partnership, and how can government policies support the growth of sustainable logistic initiative? What are the things that from the private need or the public need? Maybe start with one over.
Yeah. I mean, with anything, there are always challenges, but as a company, we're quite surprised with the support that we've gotten from Prasarana directly, from APD as the government, as a regulator, and even the Ministry of Transport. YB Anthony Locke came over to our main sorting hub at LRT Putra Heights to see the operation for himself, and he was also very clear in terms of his support of innovation like this. What we do is new, but it has direct benefits to Prasarana and to the communities out there in terms of a more green, sustainable approach. So we're quite happy with how it works, but indeed, companies, you have to work together. It's not just us working together, so that's why we work closely and pretty much daily with Prasarana in terms of setting the partnership up, and then also from a daily operational point of view. Even if you have the partnership ready, it's a constant discussion that we go through. And especially with the expansion plan of those 50 new stations, it's a constant dialogue that we keep going. And that's key. So in terms of support, obviously there's kind of every kind of financial incentive to support us as a small kind of young startup in terms of tax benefits and grants, of course, but a big thing that the government has already helped us is if you look at the regulatory frameworks, kind of how to simplify the collaboration between startups and big companies. It's a model that works quite well in other regions as well, where a startup doesn't always have the connections or kind of the scope as bigger companies do. The bigger companies might not have the capabilities or the know-how that the startups have. So that kind of partnership works really well. So any way to facilitate that collaboration, to start a pilot like we did, see if it works, and if it works, then go to the next phase and scale up accordingly. So yeah, any way to kind of smoothen that transition, and it's not just for us in logistics. Pretty much in every industry and every sector, there are startups that can collaborate with public entities as well, and ultimately it will benefit everybody because in this case we're supporting them and they're supporting us, and it's a win-win situation for everybody.
And we can see one of the policy to boost health ecosystem from the part of private partnership, probably a more simplified business operation partnership, but also for Astro, what are some of the areas that policy can or allow to boost, we can say, the growth of the public-private partnership, but also from the public perspective?
So, I think if we are able to open our eyes and accept different innovations, right? We must be flexible in terms of the policies that we can change, right? So fortunately for us, we are regulated by APAD, right? And they've been really supportive. Honestly, they've been really supportive. And not only that, APAD is an agency under the Ministry of Transport. The minister himself is very supportive of this. So, when we get parties who are very supportive of innovation, right, and driving sustainability, I think changes in policies can be accepted and can be done quite quickly. Yeah? And I think the most important thing is they must buy into the idea and they're supportive of it. And when that happens, I think policies that need changes, public transport not only for people, can be for goods as well. It actually just happens. So supportive and people who are willing to learn or accept innovation are the ones that drive policy changes.
And also, this is a very good initiative, both fostering by the public and private partnership in boosting our logistics industry sector, and take a look for moving forward. What's your vision, mission, maybe a wish list that position yourself as a leader within the innovative logistic delivery industry that also can contribute to Malaysia's 2050 goals to reduce net carbon emissions? What's your wish?
So right now we're focused on Klang Valley because we're using LRT network, so we're somewhat bound by the physical nature of the network. But to be honest, a big business is within Klang Valley. So short term, mid term, there's enough for us to do and to continuously grow and get better at what we do. But ultimately, we're looking at the whole of Malaysia. So really connecting also the larger cities, because what we're looking at is leveraging on the city infrastructure that's not being fully utilized. So one big part is public transport, but it could also be real estate for storage or other things. So even cities that don't have an extensive network like Kuala Lumpur, other cities we could still operate, leverage electrical vehicle technology and city infrastructure that's already there. So our vision is to deploy this model, first expand Klang Valley and then go to the rest of Malaysia. Long term, what we want for Malaysia to become a thought leader in this area in terms of sustainable last mile delivery. So if you also look beyond Malaysia, once we do well here, that we become the experts and deploy the solution in other markets as well in the region. And then especially like a company like Prasarana can also play an active role in training and guiding other public transport operators to do the same. Because this is new, this is innovative, this is different from how most companies operate.
Yeah, some people might be scared, but all we have to do moving forward is to be ready with whatever is going to happen. And Ashok, probably lastly, we can say it's one of the pioneering public-private partnership in terms of innovative logistics delivery. And talking about the last mile delivery is integrated within the prasarana system. It has opened a way of pathway showing us that within the logistic sector we can go much higher as we adding innovation towards is not only providing delivery or services to only people within the community, but we can also maximize the benefit of the infrastructure that we have in Malaysia. So moving forward, what's your dream and hope to boost this industry as a whole and of the ecosystem?
I think the vision is pretty clear on our side, that public transport is not just about moving people. Yeah, I think it can be used to move other things as well, right? I think it can support commerce, it can support business. I think it can drive sustainability. I think it can drive innovation. More importantly, I think it's a way for Malaysia towards, or Kuala Lumpur to head towards a smart city. Yeah. So I think the vision is clear. We are just not here to move people, although that remains a priority, right? That doesn't change. But we can do more than move people now. Yeah. And that's going to be the vision going forward.
And again, I want to say thank you very much for sharing your story and how this journey of public-private partnership is going to reshape logistics and even green commerce. Again, I want to say thank you very much to our guests. On my right side is Ono Prayafat, the co-founder and COO of Dalco, and also on the left side also Ashok Panchaligam, the acting chief executive officer, Prasarana Integrated Development Sedan Berhad Pride. Again, I want to say thank you very much and hope to see you again, and probably I'll have my things, goods and services to be delivered within the Prasarana maybe in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And all of this discussion will be featured in astro.com and across all social media platforms.
Nak coklat? Hari ni tak boleh. Nanti saya kena dengan mak saya.
Pepsodent baharu disahkan halal. Microkalsium aktif dan Pro-Florida Complex membantu memperbaiki lubang halus akibat makanan manis sebelum menjadi kaviti untuk pelindungan maksimum. Pepsodent.
Thanks for joining us. Selamat Hari Raya Aidilfitri, Minal Aidil wal Faizin, Eid Mubarak to everyone that is celebrating. My name is Ibrahim Sani. This is a pre-recorded interview that we did last week at my office. In the studio with me is Jamil Ahmad, the Chief Analyst at online trading brokerage GTC. Jamil, thanks very much for coming over to KL. And if people missed out our conversation last week, I think I want to make a big disclaimer. Jamil is a long-time friend of mine. We
likewise.
Yeah, and how have things been, my friend? I mean, other than getting a job at GTC and the like, and me ending up in the Ministry of Economy, but one thing that I am actually quite interested to talk about is actually Adolescence, the movie by Netflix. Have you seen that one?
No.
It's a really scary movie, TV. It's 4 episodes. It's based in the UK. It's about, the story is a very simple one. A 13-year-old stabs another 13-year-old. You see that and you read that in the UK, but of course it happens elsewhere. The issue here is on how the youth and the social media impacts how we think. Mental health is a big topic, at least in Malaysia. I don't know if it is
universal.
Yeah, and in the realm of medical science, there's 2 things that they like to talk about: incidences and prevalence. Initially, when they talk about mental health issues as a rise of incidences, initially people thought that because that's why there are more psychiatrists, psychologists, there are more therapists out there, so it's a lot more easier for them to identify among the population. But now there's an issue of not just the incidences are rising, the prevalence of it is also rising. So people are really truly impacted by, I guess, the rise of social media and technology and how this impacts everyone. And of course, you travel the world, you see a few markets, you see how people invest, the global economy is taking shape. Yeah. And of course, I don't think we ever recovered from COVID.
Agreed.
We've discussed this in the last episode.
Agreed.
But yeah, how are things shaping up, especially when you view the different markets that you operate in? Because investors are people after all.
Absolutely.
Your customers, the GTC customers,
Absolutely.
are people after all, and they're emotive, I suppose. But they're also cautious, a bit brave at sometimes, but at the same time, do they take unnecessary risks when it comes to investing? Is this reflective of how they carry themselves in real life? How do you see the world changing since the last time I met you?
This is such a broad question that
I
think we're going to have an own episode on this, but I'm more than happy to talk about something that I'm prepared to talk about. Mental health is so important. And it's not just in Malaysia that we're talking about this, and I'm happy to be Jamil, the person here. Not the international spokesperson, the analyst or anything. I'm more than happy to
we did that in the previous episode.
Yes, exactly. I'm more than happy just to break it down.
Yeah.
I think that this generation that's coming up now has a lot of challenges. And they also need support and guidance, which is why I'm really happy to hear about your other responsibilities that you're taking up to help provide access to education and so forth. Because again, if we're talking about financial markets, I said in the previous episode, learning never stops. Even as somebody who's been in this field now for 20 years, always there's change in the world. There's always opportunities to learn and do something, or just the environment's different. Short-termism is a big challenge for the emerging generation now, Generation Z, I would say even millennials, because we had this rise of social media, technology advances, accessibility to information and so forth, where things have been consumed in a way that everything's easy and is achievable. Everything's within grasp. If you want to get a new iPhone, you get your new iPhone. This patience that I think some of the older millennials were used to from the previous generation is not something that exists as parallel now to the youth that are coming up. And I'm not criticizing the youth. That's because of how we consume information, where social media makes everything easy. You make new friends or so-called friends and so forth. In terms of bridging this back towards financial markets, there's two different terms here. There's trading and there's investing. Trading is a skill that needs to be developed. We can talk about being a suffering Manchester United fan, a recently suffering Chelsea fan, although Chelsea are doing somewhat better now. Somewhat better now.
And we're in the most competitive league right now. It's called the Europa Conference League. And we're doing fairly well there. So I got that going for me.
It's a trophy, my friend.
But a UEFA trophy at that,
Yes, and from somebody who's going to get knocked out in the Europa League anytime soon, I would take the Conference League. Back to the more serious topic of investing. Again, you are in a sensationalist world now where everything's so clickbait and it's so easy. Let's just believe that Bitcoin's going to hit 100,000. Okay, it hit 100,000, but the trend was not just like this. And I think the youth now are at a big risk where headlines are so easy to believe. It's so sensationalist. For every time Bitcoin looked like it was going to move towards 100,000, and it did double in price between the presidential elections towards late January, I think it was, there was also a number of dips. Gold hit 3,000 for the first time ever late last week. But we had a number of bounces lower before we got to 3,000. You never say never to anything in financial markets. Okay? No 2 days are ever the same. My role is always to provide and share knowledge, and to help invest in client education, because as somebody now has been in this field for nearly 20 years, I'm telling you, I'm still learning.
It's not just that. Masculinity is an issue right now. How do we differentiate people who are investing versus just addicted to gambling, and we mask it as investing, especially young men? Do you see that as an issue in your line of work, where people think that they're investing, but actually they're just making bets and getting a dopamine hit every time their bet hits the mark, and they just slump? If they miss the mark, is there any correlation, at least in your view, in terms of how young men view investing? Are they truly investing in the truest sense of the word, or are they just, it's another way of just going to the casino?
I can understand why it's been labelled that way, but where I'm sitting, the jurisdiction down in the UAE and the Middle East, The connotation is not quite there. In terms of trading being a masculine or investing being a masculine field, interesting thing is I can tell you when I'm delivering seminars, such as this time last week, I delivered a seminar in front of 400 people in Hong Kong giving global market analysis. I can tell you that more than half of the people in the room were female.
Oh.
So I still see this as an emerging field which needs more, I would say, research behind it. But I agree with you, in certain jurisdictions, investments, finance, trading, maybe the association with gambling and betting and so forth, male-driven and male-dominant, and I can understand why the similarities are, but there shouldn't be, because investing is not a bet. And that's where we have to associate between investing and trading.
Yes, of course.
If you're going to just speculate, again, and I use the Bitcoin metaphor again, if you're just going to bet on Bitcoin being 100,000 and just going like this in a straight line, then unfortunately, if it sounds too good to be true, it generally is in life.
It is.
And this is where those connotations with whether we call it masculinity or potential gambling, or just basically being naive. Unfortunately, that's also a case of that.
Well, the word I would use is greedy, unfortunately. Naivete is, you know, I mean, you got to take actions. You got to take responsibility for your own actions.
That's
unfortunately.
I agree.
And then, of course, so now you're in Dubai. So how have you been? Because the last time I checked, you were in the UK. You were from Cyprus. You were living in Cyprus. You're in the UK. And then how has it been? The whole. How long have you been in Dubai?
I've been in the UAE now for just over 2 years. I'm so thankful to GTC, the brand I represent, for giving me the opportunity to come out of the UK. Because the funny thing is with me, and not many know that about my career story, is I left the UK as soon as I did my undergraduate degree because I didn't see opportunities. The graduate financial crisis in the UK was particularly poor in terms of scope for work and opportunities. So
what about the minority element, the Muslim element? Does that help in this story? Being in the UK?
I've always tried to be the best version of myself, regardless of background and regardless of any potential challenges ahead. Yes, there's still underrepresentation in sectors. And maybe in my sector as well, as a financial market board spokesperson and so forth, perhaps I'm not. Perhaps I am a minority in terms of having a British Pakistani background, Muslim name and so forth. But quite frankly, I sit in the chair and believe I'm the best person in the chair, whether I was Caucasian, mixed race, any background. I don't differentiate in that sense of the word. But I can see why in some sectors, we're still underrepresentation, whether you're female, from any ethnic background, your view on certain aspects of life and so forth, but I try not to eat into such data, be the best version of yourself. In terms of my career story, I graduated 2012. I was lucky enough to get a scholarship to represent the UK at a leadership and cultural training program in the US. I was there for just over 2 months. And during that program, I made a contact with somebody in Singapore who was setting up a brokerage in Cyprus. 1 year after I went to Cyprus, I ended up staying there for nearly 7 years. And the funny thing is, and this is again something I would really love to teach the youth as something that I needed to do. When I moved to Cyprus, I was earning less money than somebody who was doing non-graduate work in the UK. Fact. But to get ahead, sometimes you have to get away. And that experience I picked up then in my early 20s was still more substantial than my peers and my friends were picking up in their early 30s in the UK. So that helped me in my own learning tremendously. And I'm so thankful for those times which I might have thought that were hard. And from Cyprus, I stayed there for 7 years. Lucky enough to travel the world, meet amazing media houses, institutions, corporate clients, and have these opportunities to have conversations with people I would not have had if I didn't take those short-term potential risks. But you can do that because you always learn. And that's advice I'd give to anyone. If you want to get ahead, get away from your comfort zone. Push yourself. Be brave. And it's okay to make a mistake. but learn from that mistake, because ultimately there's two C's in your corporate life: consistency and complacency. Never be complacent, because somebody else is going to go above you. If you can consistently look at yourself and think, I'm trying my best, nobody can ask for more, and you can ask for more of yourself. And I think that also reads into the mental health aspect.
So how do you keep yourself grounded? Sorry, I'm using a code word, sane.
In this financial market environment of Trumpism.
Grounded. How do you keep yourself grounded? No, but basically it's an insane time to be in, to be frank.
Yeah.
Not in a clinical term sense, but you know, everything's everywhere right now. We use the term everything's up in the air in the previous episode. But yeah, so how do you keep yourself grounded? What's your true north? How do you keep a true north?
It's hard to switch off. As you mentioned, things are definitely up in the air. It's wacky times in the world.
Yeah.
That impacts my day-to-day job.
Yeah.
But I try to be the best version of myself.
Do you turn to spiritual? Is that helping, or that?
Somewhat. Again, I believe this is the holy month of Ramadan. Nothing's put in front of us that we can't handle.
Yeah.
I believe in that train of thought. I stay grounded by being me. At the end of the day, again, Jamil is a person. The glitz and glamour of appearing on all these different multinational worldwide news networks, whether I'm lucky enough to be on the Astro AWANI network, the BBC, Al Jazeera's, the global names and so forth, number one goal, and I would say there's on air no issue at all, is to make my parents happy for me. Because you're talking about some aspects of this world being underrepresented. I can tell you for a fact, my father's an immigrant from Pakistan. Neither my mum or dad had access to higher education. My father was a taxi driver. My mum worked on petrol stations. She was a teaching assistant for special needs children. My parents did everything possible and everything they could to provide their children with more opportunities. Even though those opportunities weren't clear at that time.
Yeah.
And that hard work, that determination, those ethics, those integrity were instilled in us and were far more valuable than any flashy gadget any kid on the street might have. I have ethics, I'm a brand. And I have integrity in my heart. And if I keep to those principles, I will be thankful for any success that I have. And I'm so thankful, really. But that's what keeps me grounded.
In this show, in the latest form of this, because Notepad was such a success, but I had to leave that for this. I had a clinical psychologist over, sitting in your chair, and I asked the same question to this clinical psychologist, and the psychologist said, normally what we do in my line of work, or in his line of work, he said, if you leave today, right, if you leave the world today, what would be something of you that you want to continue on? That is mostly on the individual to answer. So for me, I answered that hypothetical question by saying my children. I do everything for my kids. You do this for your parents. But basically that true north is always in the service of others. It's never about, you know, I want to be the greatest person alive and then that's it.
Yeah.
So do you feel that kind of thinking is also important into how you bring your professional life day-to-day kind of thing?
It's vital because, again, Jamil Ahmad, the person, Jamil Ahmad, the spokesperson, and so forth, they're somewhat interconnected in some ways. But should tragedies unfortunately strike, and should my time be no longer ticking, to use that unfortunate metaphor, I would like for Ibrahim as the person, if he was asked, how was Jamil? What was he really like? That's my legacy. That's how I'm going to continue living, even if I'm not living. And that's the same for any market or person I meet, whether it's your cameraman, the security at the front door, the Grab driver who got me here. What was he like as a person? What impression did he leave? That's my legacy. Let's
talk about investor awareness. I doubt that, at least in Malaysia, people are still unfamiliar with online trading, brokerages like GTC or many others. But I'm sure there's always room to grow in terms of how we improve our understanding of how it works. There's also AI, and I'm pretty sure you can, we need 3 more episodes for I want to ask you about AI and how it impacts your line of work. There's also the whole element of, are people shying away? How do people diversify their portfolio? And then, of course, cash on hand. I doubt that there's much cash on hand these days for investors. Normally, it's always about putting food on the table and do they have enough even for that. So how do you view these kind of, I guess, macro changes that are currently happening? How does AI impact you? Do people have enough to invest in? And basically, do you think that the whole notion of, say, for instance, for me, I don't partake in active trading at all, or active investing at all. I put it in a very safe, slow burn kind of situation with in dollar average returns. I take away some of my income and put it there, and I don't want to think about it. And I do think about it like in December, and I just check the statement, and that's about it.
When you need to buy Christmas presents, right?
Christmas presents, and my children, their birthdays are very close.
Okay.
Around January, February as well. But yeah, how are things now changing compared to how you first started off?
Firstly, I wish your children the most amazing future.
Thank you very much.
In terms of how things are changing, it's a good question, because I would say how you described your own investing mindset, steady wins the race. Again, when we talk about the mental health aspect and how the world now is so fast moving and changing, less is sometimes more. And the approach you have, I would say that's more than adequate, because there's always an opportunity in financial markets, but that opportunity could be unsuccessful or successfully realized, depending on so many different factors. AI is definitely a game changer, like it is for all different industries and economies. Does it impact my line of work today so much? Not really. It's been a bit overshooted. But if we had this interview maybe 18 months to 2 years from now, I think my answer would change. In terms of mindsets towards investing, if you look at the growing client base, not just for the firm that I represent, but generally across the industry, it's actually retail investors. They're the growing market. So definitely more awareness is there, more appetite towards investing is there. But that's where my role becomes so important and influential, because this is not easy. Again, it's a skill. It's not a hobby. It's not a lottery ticket. You can't turn $2 to 200,000 US dollars, no matter whoever sells you that dream. You will literally be 1 in a million if you're able to achieve that, if not 1 in 10 million. So I think that's important.
But AI specific and how it is affecting everybody right now, does this bring about more harm to your career or better for your career?
I think personally it's going to be better, because if we're relying on technology to do the trading for us or to do different industry perspective for us, one thing technology cannot be yet, although it's making some room, is be human. To, in a human way, explain these very technical and complex topics to an audience, and I do my best, who will not understand it so much because of different levels of education, different levels of experience in investing, what is investing, the metaphors and so forth. But yeah, the chat GPTs and so forth, they're definitely changing the game, like they're changing so many different industry games too. But in terms of being an analyst and a spokesperson, it's not there yet. I hope for your sake, I won't be cloned, because I think you'll have a big headache. Also, I won't be able to come to this amazing market so much. But yeah, I see the room for concerns, but I also see the room for opportunities. And if the right people are involved in this technology and they're using it for greater good, for medicine and for end some very unfortunate human suffering and so forth, then yes, there's so much opportunity there. But if it's used to make the rich richer, which unfortunately there's always scope for that, because it is the rich that benefit from any crisis, from any changes. Exactly, agreed. Then that's where there's area for concern. But if technology is used for greater good, incredible.
Tell me more about GTC, especially for audiences that might not be familiar with your brokerage.
Yeah, so global online brokerage, we have clients from more than 100 different countries. We're globally regulated in many different jurisdictions, whether it's the United Kingdom, the UAE, where I'm sitting, South Africa, Australia, certainly a global powerhouse in the industry that's emerging. I'm very thankful to be with them, for them to trust me, because the core messages and the values of this company to share knowledge, invest in client education, they're completely in parallel with how I am as a person and how I view this industry. And I would say the same thing I said on the previous episode. No matter how many glitz and glamour there is from the travel, or supposed glitz and glamour, because it's actually very tiring, from the travel, from getting to meet the different media houses, the global publications and so forth, the number one thing that always gets me excited, enthusiastic and so forth, is speaking to everyday audience. That's where I get the most enjoyment and fulfillment out of my career path. And at the moment, I don't have that, I stop.
Finally, talk to me more about Manchester United. Why are they... Well, apparently Old Trafford is moving out, right?
Where are they? I mean, how low is this floor right now? These are really...
I think that's the toughest, right? But just like, just like everything else, it's about long-term investing, so...
Well, look, if we're talking about investing metaphors, we've been taking profit on Manchester United for a long time. There's been a huge correction on the Manchester United brand. I'm not happy about leaving Old Trafford. I hate that idea.
Really? Are you from Manchester, Ben?
No, but when you go to Old Trafford, you feel that history in the air, whether you are a Manchester United fan or not. You love this feeling of Manchester United in the history. But the Glazers have been awful.
Yeah.
They've been awful.
Yeah.
And Radcliffe has definitely not been what we hoped he would be.
Yeah.
But we have to be objective that he's inheriting a bad situation. I'm not going to say that certain decisions are popular, like the cancelling of staff lunches, the limited budgets now for the Man United charities and so forth. What got me into Manchester United in the first point was not the success. I was a young kid who watched the Bobby Charlton movie about the Munich air disaster, the Busby Babes and so forth. That's what hit my heart. That's what got me into Manchester United, and that's what keeps me at Man United. However, slowly, the club, the brand is losing those values, and that's the scary thing as a United fan. And in terms of what's next, you look at where we are on the table, and
I don't even know. Is it the bottom half still?
Well into the bottom half. I think we are now the bottom 6, which is better than the bottom 4. But who would have seen that coming?
I supported Chelsea when I was a young boy, and Chelsea was relegated from the Premier League. Think about that. So and then, of course, the shot in the arm was Abramovich came about, and that was fun because as a young lad, it was always interesting to see the club, win everything. And now we're there. I don't know. So money and football is also quite intrinsically a debatable moment. But Malaysia is also, we're seeing a little bit of that with the one club having over hundreds of millions of ringgit being poured in. But just one club. It does fairly well in the ASEAN Super League, but that's about it.
There's a football league here? I didn't know. I'm joking.
Come on.
I'm just teasing. I'm just teasing. No, in terms of the Chelsea story, Chelsea was the story of a club that did it right. You look at the youth that came up, you look at how Chelsea was able to identify and really progress. Chelsea was done the right way. If you look at Man City, can you really say that?
No.
Exactly.
I can say Liverpool does it that way.
Liverpool deserve what they succeed, and that comes from. That's very hard to say.
No. I mean, if you're a Premier League supporter, you would just look at Liverpool and you would just say they did it right.
Even Arsenal now are back where they deserve to be as a legacy club. Just that was just a joke about the Malaysian Football League.
It's fine. It's fine. Tottenham is still Tottenham.
There's a trophy.
I have a lot more trophies than Tottenham.
How about that? Cabinet. It's dusty.
So how are you celebrating your Eid?
I hope to maybe stay here for a few days, or I would either go back to the Middle East, or I might try and go to a neighboring country. But the month has gone very fast. I think the traveling eats into it. But Ramadan Mubarak to everybody, and Eid Mubarak to everyone, whether you're celebrating or not. I think there's room for unity, and there's a lot more global understanding now between and about different national and ethnic holidays. Again, as somebody who's lived in the Middle East, in the UAE, I really want you to visit us sometime, by the way. I think we should arrange that.
I will.
But you're seeing so much cultural awareness of different religious holidays, no matter which religion you're following. So I think there's definitely some progress made in the global world in terms of being more globally aware of different cultures. And we should.
I think there was an iftar session at Windsor Castle.
Yes, correct. I was actually in the UK visiting my parents that week. That was the first week of Ramadan. Again, yes, we have many challenges in the world. We still have a lot of stereotypes and so forth. But I think there's more awareness about different beliefs and different theories and values of life.
Final question before we conclude the show. Are you more optimistic or are you more cautious about the next 12 months? As a person, as an investor, as Jamil?
Cautious across all of the different streams, because if we go back to the tariffs, okay? We're having recession forecasts that are really coming out of the woodwork, and they're fiery. But we also have a world economy that's not yet contracting. Global trade is so important to the world economy. We saw a snapshot towards what happens when global trade stops with COVID. Let's just hope this US administration are negotiating, they're making deals, and they're pursuing their own campaign pledges, nationalist agenda, however we're going to phase it, rather than going to be the ones that are really going to push this world economy into another dark space, because there's a risk of that, and unfortunately I do need to end that on that sour note.
Eid Mubarak, Selamat Raya, Idul Fitri, but that's Jamil Ahmad for you. I wish I can get you in quite often.
Yes.
I have Dubai on the cards for me during the Idul Adha period, 2-3 months from now. So I'll probably bring one of the cameramen as well over.
Come to our office, most welcome.
There you go. If you've missed any part of this show, just head on to astroawani.com, look for GTC, Jamil Ahmad, or The Economy, or even my name, Ibrahim Sani. Till then, Selamat Raya Idul Fitri, Maaf Zahir dan Batin.